All right, it's now time for Unreal Power.
All right, so
So
last
last
time
time
we
we
set up
found out
so
so
that
that
when
when
we
we
die,
die,
so when
but
our,
when
our
our
player comes
player
back
comes
down
back
to
down
zero,
to zero,
our health comes back down to zero, we
we
wow, all
wow,
right,
right,
respawn.
respawn.
And
And
it
it
keeps
keeps
our
our
health
health
and
and
our
our
coins
coins
intact.
intact,
Although
although
we do
we
to
do
make
to
full
make
health,
full health,
we
we
need
need
to
to
make
make
that
that
update
update.
really yet. So
So
the way
the
we
way
did
we
that
did that
was
was
we
we
had
have
our
our checkpoint blueprint that we made,
and the
and the
checkpoint
checkpoint blueprint
is
is just
uh, a little
a little
platform here
platform
with
here
a
with a
collision
collision
volume for a
volume for a
trigger,
trigger,
and
and
then
then
when
when
the
the
third
third
person
person
character
character
or
or
our
our
character
character
overlaps,
overlaps,
then we are
then we are
going
going
to
to
call
call
a
a
dispatcher
dispatcher
or
or
an
an
interface to be
interface to
made
make
on
on
the
the
game
game
mode
mode
and
and
tell
tell
it
it
what the
what the
transform
transform
of
of
this
this
checkpoint
checkpoint
is.
is.
And
And
then
then
we
we
turn
turn
off
off
the
the
collision
collision
so
so
that
that
we
we
don't
don't
do it
do
more
it
than
more than
once,
once, so we can't
backtrack
backtrack,
essentially.
essentially.
Um,
Um,
inside
inside
the
the
game
game
mode,
mode,
we
we
set
set
this up
this up
here.
here.
So
So
this is
this is
the
the
dispatcher
dispatcher
that
that
our
our
checkpoint's
checkpoint's
calling,
calling,
and
and
it's
it's
just
just
telling
telling
it
it
where
where
we're
we're
going,
going,
and
and
then
then
this
this
is
is
just
just
saving
sending
that
that
as a
as a
variable.
variable.
And
And
then
then
this is
this
being
is being
called
called
by the
by the
controller,
controller,
and just
and just
telling us,
telling us,
hey,
hey,
respawn the
respawn the
player
player
at this
at this
transform,
transform,
and then we're
and then we're
picking
picking
either
either
the
the
player
player
start
start
transform
transform
or the
or the
transform
transform
of
of
the
the
variable we
variable
have.
we have.
And this is
And this is
literally
literally
just
just
checking
checking
to
to
see,
see,
like,
like,
is
is
this
this
still all
still all
zeros,
zeros,
or did
or
we
did we
actually
actually
set
set
something?
something? Yeah.
If we
If we
actually set
actually set
something,
something,
then
then
we're
we're
going
going
to
to
use
use
that
that
one.
one.
If we
If we
didn't set
didn't set
something yet,
something
then we're
yet,
going to
then we're
use
going
the
to use the
player
player
start.
start.
That's all
That's
that's
all
doing.
that's doing.
And
And
then
then
the player
the player
controller
controller
is
is
on
on
possession.
possession.
So
So,
like
like,
this
this
fire
fires
is whatever
whatever
we
we
take
take
possession
possession of
on.
on.
Uh,
Uh,
we
we
are
are
binding
binding
its
its
on
on
and its end
and
play
play
event.
events.
So
So
whenever it gets
whenever it gets
destroyed,
destroyed,
and
and we're
we're
binding
binding
that
that
to
to
this
this
delegate
delegate key.
key.
So
So
basically,
basically,
it
it
tells
tells
us
us
to
to
listen
listen
for
for
whenever
whenever
our
our
pawn
pawn
dies,
dies,
and
and
whenever it
whenever it
has
has
do
do
this.
this.
Um, whenever this
Whenever this
fires,
fires,
we
we
tell the
tell the
game
game
mode,
mode,
hey,
hey,
respawn the
respawn the
player.
player.
We
If
tell
we
it
tell
that
it
we are
that
in
we are in
control, it
control, it
wants the
wants the
player,
player,
in
in
case
case
we
we
have
have
multiplayer or
multiplayer or
whatever.
whatever.
And
And
then
then
this is
this is
just
just
resetting
resetting
the
the
widget.
widget.
So
So
here in the
here in the
widget,
widget,
on event
on event
construct,
construct,
we're
we're
binding
binding
our
our
events.
events.
Because this
Because this
one
one
died,
died,
this is
this
no
is no
longer going
longer
to
going to
work.
work.
So we
So we
need
need
to
to
take this
take
off
this
the
off the
screen and then
screen
put
and
this
then put
back
this
on the
back on
screen
the
real
screen
quick,
real quick,
and
and
that'll
that'll
make
make
this
this
fire
fire
again,
again,
and
and
then
then
that'll
that'll
bind
bind
to the
to the
new
new
pawns in the
pawn.
game. We
We still have to actually get it to like
reset
reset
to
to
full
full
health,
health,
but
but
that's
that's
really
really that's a quick fix or stuff.
Um, but that's
But that's
essentially what we
essentially what
did
we did
last time.
last time.
Anybody
Anybody
have
have
any
any
questions
questions
about
about
that?
that?
If you do, just put them in the chat. Oh, there.
Oh,
And
the
the
interface
interface
we
we
made
made
is
is
the
the
platform
platform
VPI.
VPI.
Um,
Again,
this
this
is
is
just
just
a
a
place
place
where
where
you
you
can
can
Mhm.
define
define
like
what
what
functions
functions
you
you
want
want
to
to
use.
use.
So
So up here,
I gave
I
it
gave
a
it a
name,
name,
set
set
respawn
respawn
point,
point,
gave
gave
it
it
an
an
input,
input,
and
and then
then
that's
that's it.
it.
Same thing with
Same thing with
respawn
respawn
player.
player.
I
I
gave it a
gave it a
name,
name,
gave it an
gave it an
input,
input,
nothing
nothing
else.
else.
And
And
then
then
it
it
was
was
up
up
to
to
the
the
game
game
mode
mode
to
to
actually
actually
implement
implement
these
these
two
two
events.
events.
So
So
under
under
class
class
settings,
settings,
uh,
uh,
the
the
interface
interface
section
section
here
here
is
is
where
where
you
you
add
add
them.
them. and then that'll give you access to the functions defined in the interface. So essentially letting you know that they exist and allowing you to implement something for them. Now, any questions?
They'll ask Andy that it's when they log in.
Okay. All
right.
So if there's no questions, we're going to move on to AI and setting up the win condition for this, and then basically just doing the end game stuff. Let me know if anybody has a question in the meantime, but otherwise I'm going to just keep kind of moving. The first thing we need when we're going to do AI stuff is we need a nav mesh volume, or you need to do like an environment query system. We're not going to get an environment query stuff, so we're going to just do the nav mesh. The way this works is anything that is enveloped by the nav mesh or by the volume, it will calculate as part of the surfaces an AI can walk. So I'm going to real quick go back to the regular perspective mode for this for a second. And I already have mine turned on, but normally it will like this. And then under show, you can decide what you want to see, and navigation is for the nav mesh. Shortcut is P. But this will show you where things are allowed to walk, essentially. So I will scale this like quite a bit on X, and a little bit on. So you'll notice that it doesn't go the whole way to the edge, and it doesn't go like it doesn't go through certain things. So this key, if I bring this down slightly, no, it doesn't care about the key. It does care about these. It cares about the door. So anything that blocks visibility, I do believe is what's being blocked out here. But so this is like all these green areas are where an AI would be allowed to walk. Just to check, because I'm 95%. Oh wait, hold on. Does the mesh have? Yeah, that's why. Okay, that's all. Okay. So Control E, pop this open, and I'm going to tell all these meshes that they don't need to have collision because they do not. So now we come back out here. Yay! Just this dude. Interesting. In any case, so this is the area we'll be allowed to walk into. When we do AI stuff, we are also going to use, we're going to make a new folder for this, just because. We're going to need a couple of things. Number one, I'm going to need an AI controller class. So I can't get that from this top section here. I have to actually go in here. We're going to do AI controller, and I'm going to pick that. The crowd stuff is basically for like background things, or like if you wanted to have something that was going to like follow a path specifically, but we don't need to worry about that. This is going to be our
former enemy. There we go.
So here's our platform enemy. Controller.
Come back to this in a minute.
Other thing I need is either a pawn or a character. I'm going to have a character just because it'll be a little easier for us. This will be more of a character. And then under artificial intelligence here, we're going to use the behavior tree and the blackboard. State tree is a more advanced thing, which is very similar to the behavior tree, and then environment query is another system that uses like probes instead of the mesh. We're going to use the behavior tree and the blackboard for just our general like more simple logic. So behavior tree, this will be our sure T and platform underscore BB. So when I open up the blackboard, this is just a list of variables. So over here I have a thing, it's name self actor, and it is of type object, and more specifically is of class actor. So this can hold object references of actors. That's essentially all that's doing for us. We can add additional keys, so things like has line of sight, or destination, or target, whatever. Just any kind of information we want the AI to be able to base their decisions on needs to be in here. The next one is the behavior tree itself. Up here in the upper right-hand corner, just like the widgets, we have our two little tabs here. So the behavior tree and the blackboard are linked. So I can pop back and forth between the two, and it will sort automatically down. I can switch. So if I decided that I didn't want to use this blackboard, I could pick a different one. But this is our list of variables down here at the bottom, and there's a little tab for it. So the way this works is top to bottom, left to right. So if I pull up in here and I do if I do this, we're going to come in from the root, it's going to hit the sequence, and then it's going to go to wait first, because it says number one, and then it's going to go to rotate to face second. If I move this over here, you'll see that it switches the numbers. So the actual location of the things on this particular graph matters. So first things first, when we come off the root, this is going to be our entry point. You only have a couple of options.
Hmm.
A selector is going to try stuff from left to right, so it's going to, 1, 2, 3, whatever, and it's going to do the first one that works. So if it comes over here to this first one, and then this first one fails, it's going to just try the second one. It's going to move on. Sequence works very similarly, but a little different. It's going to start from the left and work from the right. However, as soon as it hits one that fails, it's going to stop and just tick out. So if the selector comes to the sequence and the sequence tries the first thing and the first thing works, and tries the second thing and the second thing fails, we're not going to try the third thing, the fourth thing, the fifth thing. We're just going to stop here and then tick back out, and the selector is going to move on to the next sequence. All right? Does anybody have any questions about like the core functionality of how this works or the concept?
Nobody has any comments? Jordan, you don't have any? Okay.
All right. So we can name these things, and that's going to be a good idea for us. So this one's going to be attack player, and this one's going to be patrol. So this is going to essentially run our tasks when we're doing patrol stuff, and this will run our tasks when we're doing attack player stuff. So when we're doing attack player, first thing I want to do is I want to rotate to face the enemy, or the player actually. And then so this is rotate to face BB entry. This is a task that is included by Unreal Engine, and we'll basically just make the thing rotate to face whatever we're telling it to look at. At the moment, we only have the one key on our blackboard, named self-actor. I'm going to rename this so that it's less confusing, and this is going to be player character. Save, and then back over here, and now rotate to face player character. We are then going to need to try and attack it or do something. There is no function built in for that, so we're going to make our own. At the top of the screen here, we can make a new service, task, or decorator. We'll talk about services and decorators later. Right now, we're just going to worry about tasks, and that's what these are. So we're going to make a new task. We don't have any other ones, so it automatically assumed parent class is going to be the VT task blueprint base, and it may be a child of that. If we make any other tasks, it'll ask me which one I want the parent to be. You always want to pick the base blueprint unless you're trying to extend another task on purpose. Right? So this one's going to be my attack player VTT. And then this automatically went into my AI block that's what happened. So the way these work is I need to do receive, execute, AI. This is going to fire whenever a behavior tree is being run by an AI controller, and this task is called. So, I'm not saying that. There we go. Oh, right, that's also wrong. All right. So whenever we come down here, we rotate to face our character, and then we try and do this. That's when this is going to fire as soon as we call that. This lets us know which controller is trying to run this task right now, and then which pawn is associated with that. So, in order to make this pawn do some kind of an attack, we need to tell it to do that. We could build the logic in here, so I can spawn a projectile and fire it here. I can also do it from inside of the actual enemy. For this particular one, I think we're going to go ahead and just do it in here. So I'm going to get the location. I'm going to actually. I don't know about it. So we're going to get his location, and then we're going to also get forward vector, and then we're going to just spawn a projectile from here. Let's let this open. To this.
Hmm.
50 just for fun. We'll probably change that down later.
Matt.
So this is just assigning a point in front of our header. So we can spawn our projectile.
Matt, I've got some concern over this.
Yeah?
With all this training, my students are getting too powerful.
Yeah?
That's what they're telling me. We got to put a cap on that. Anyway.
So, what do you want to adjust? You want to teach them less stuff?
I'm just playing. This is very powerful. Like, what is? Are we writing algorithms, AI algorithms, or are they already written?
So, the pathfinding and stuff like that is already written, so you don't have to do that. That's like the NavMesh takes care of that for you. We are essentially writing the behavior for them. So basically, we haven't got to the decorator part yet, but if we have seen the player character, we're going to turn and look at them, or if we're aware of them. So if they're near us and they're sound or whatever, then we're going to come in here and look at them and then try and attack them. And then we're going to wait a little bit and do it again. So, and then if we don't know where they are, this is going to get blocked, so we won't be able to do this. It'll move on to control, and then we'll basically just pick a direction and start sort of walking around. This is not going to be particularly impressive in the 2D sense, but it's still just kind of a thing that demonstrates that this time doesn't have it. But you can get very fancy with this, and you can even actually have this behavior tree run other behavior trees. So, like, if I came into attack player, I could actually have this just be another behavior tree that we then enter and do a whole bunch of stuff based on, like, am I hurt? Do I have cover? Are there other people with me? How much ammo do I have? Like, you can really get deep into it if you want. But yeah, we're just kind of trying to keep it light. That's okay. So we need a projectile class to actually spawn, and then we're going to finish execute and say it was successful. If you don't finish execute, it will not know that we're actually done yet. And then if you don't tell if we failed or succeeded, then it won't know if it's supposed to go forward or kick out. Or move on, you know what I mean? So, the most important thing is always make sure you actually tell it, hey, we succeeded or not. So, we're going to real quick make a projectile for this.
Go ahead and just
make you a sphere just because. Projectile movement, same as before. We're going to set this to 2000. We will let there be some gravity. No bouncing, funny friction. Well, actually, yeah, we'll let that. This is all fine, and then event right here. Class defaults, we want to set our time, our lifespan to about 5. So what this will do is, if this is alive for more than 5 seconds, it will self-delete. So we don't have to worry about doing that for us. And then this is set to block all, perfect. So we're going to go back here and hits. Apply damage. 10. And then basically just leave that alone. And then now if it hits, we'll apply 10 damage. And the last thing I want to do is go back to the attack here and pick our projectile class made. And there we go. And I can even actually promote this to a variable. Type, and then we can turn that little eyeball on, and there we go. And then now if we want to the platformer, it'll actually let me pick which class I want to use for this, but it's default projectile. So if I decide later on, actually I want to use the laser beam or the lightning bolt, whatever, I can just make that adjustment either here on this graph or on another one. So if I make another behavior tree, I still have this task. I can call it there and then pass it whatever I want to pass it.
All right, this Blackboard, is this tougher information than anything you've done before using Blackboard?
It is different information. So the main difference between most of the areas in Unreal is the way you think about the logic. So, like in Blueprints, we have events. When the event is called, it does the logic attached to that event, right? In a behavior tree or in like an animation blueprint, we have an entry point, and then we make decisions to get to a position from there. So come in the root, hit the selector. Selector's going to try attack player first. If it's allowed, it's going to pop in here and try to rotate to face enemy character player. If this fails, it will not try this. It'll just kick back out, and then the selector will try the next thing. If this is successful, then we'll do this. If this is successful, then we'll do this. If we run out of stuff to do, then the selector will try and kick over here. So it's just moving left to right, however it can. The sequence is, left to right, but as soon as we fail, we kick out. Selector, if this fails, we just move on. We don't actually care. So that's sort of the crux of the whole thing. But you can define these individual tasks like very specifically. So I could have passed to my enemy class that I made, and then this task will only ever work with that class. Or I can do it this way, and I don't actually care what class I'm using for my enemy AI, and I don't actually care what class you want me to shoot. You can just tell me which class you want me to shoot, and I'm not tied to any particular class otherwise, so this will just work. Same thing with these, they're not tied to anything, so they'll just work. So it's kind of however you want to design the thing. Like I mentioned, there is a state tree, which is like a hierarchical version of this, which is a little more advanced. But yeah, it's just, this is just a different approach to logic, basically. Does that make sense?
Yeah, conceptually it makes sense.
I mean, like this, technically, you don't need to use this. Like, we could just put this whole thing inside of the actual blueprint class. It would just be much more pain in the ass to manage.
Mm-hmm.
And we would have this visual representation of, all right, well, this is where we're at. But, yeah. Real quick, I'm going to go ahead and add a has sights or has visual, and this is going to tell me now, like, do we see the player or not? And then back to my behavior tree here, and then so if I right click on here, I can add a decorator or a service. A service is a thing that runs like in conjunction with this. A decorator is a thing that I can put on sort of like a condition. I'm going to put a Blackboard decorator on this, which means that it's going to track one of my Blackboard tasks and decide about, like, should this run based on this. So over here on the right, I want to check, is this set? So for a Boolean, that's going to mean, is this true? And then instead of the player character, I'm going to set this to has visual. So if this is true, then it's going to try and run this. If has visual is not true, selector's going to hit this, it's not going to work, and then it's going to move on. I'm going to actually do the exact opposite of this one. So over here, Blackboard has visual is not set.
Oh, was this?
So that basically, if I have a visual and then we do the 5-second wait, and then I don't want this kick over here, I want this to just come back and rotate and try to track you again. So that will keep us over here.
Was Blackboard back in Blackboard? Was this back in UE4 and UE3?
UE3 maybe, UE4 for sure.
When did you start? You've been doing this 10 years, right? Unreal stuff.
Roughly
10 years. Yeah. So would you ever, you started at UE4 or UE3 10 years ago?
I started at UE4 1.7, I think.
1.7. Okay, so kind of early. Okay.
Yeah. Like UE3 was kind of like was cool, but like man was out of pain. UE4 was kind of faster.
Yeah.
But yeah, all right. So let's go with these. So the keyword printing, whether or not we want it to be true or not true, or set or not set, whatever. And then up top here is the notify observer. this is gonna let you know whether the result or the changes. So basically, if this changes to not set, so this becomes false, basically, then we're gonna notify somebody. The value change may or may not result in, or it may or may not be a result change. So I might be checking, if there's this, the player has a certain value of whatever. If the value changes from 25 to 30, and I'm checking if it's 40, that didn't actually change the results. So that's the difference in those. And then the observer reports. I'm going to put this for both, but this is essentially going to be if I'm in the middle of patrol and then I loot and then I gain visual, I'm not going to finish doing this stuff. I'm going to kick out immediately. So this is basically saying, if I'm in the middle of doing some stuff and it's going okay, I still want to back out. So that's what we're doing here, is saying, hey, kick out everybody. This one's going to be rotate face, and then move to, and then wait. And then we'll assign we're going to task to this to verify where we go. In order to get this to run real quick though, so we can test out what we have so far. Over here in the actually, let me close a bunch of this stuff. So in here inside the controller, we need to do two important things. Number one, over here we need to say run behavior tree, and then we tell it to run our behavior tree. So this is how we're going to actually do this. The other thing we need to do is we need to add a perception component. And then down here at the bottom, we want on target perception update. I do. Yes. So this is going to let us know when our pawn notices something, and we update the perception. The stimulus thing here is going to tell us a bunch of stuff about what we saw. So, where were they? How far, how strong was the stimulus? How long ago? How old will it be when it expires? How old is it now? Was there a tag on the thing we saw? Did we successfully see it, or was it not, up to our threshold? Actually, yeah, some. And then the actor that we noticed. So this is going to fire whenever any of that stuff changes. The AI perception component over here on the left is where we can define all of our perception settings. So right here under AI perception is our sense phase. I can pick a dominant sense. So hearing, sight, touch, damage, all that stuff is already built in. We're going to sight. And then I'm going to add a sense config right here. I'm going to say that this is my sight config. And then when we open these, it gives me a bunch of options for this. So my implementation is AI sight, because that's the dominant sense. And then my sight radius is 3,000 centimeters, and my sight loss radius is 3,500. So you have to get within 3,000, and I have to be looking at you to see you. And then you have to get at least 3,500 away before I can no longer see. So you're a little further away after I notice.
How about the line of this is a line of sight?
Yeah.
And how about the radius of sight? Like you know how a human looks, but I can't see behind me. Do you have that kind of thing? Like, 'cause, for instance, in Unity,
Yeah, so your peripheral vision,
yeah,
like I can adjust this, but essentially, anything directly in front of you is going to be 35, is going to be 3,000 centimeters, and I can see it. If you were behind, like a mesh or something, then I won't be able to see it.
all right,
That's already built in. And then if I want to adjust the peripherals, in 2D, that's going to end up being like the up and down. We can adjust it here. 90 degrees is pretty strong. I usually bend it down to like 70 because it's a little more realistic. And it's just a little easier to get through. And then the sight radius, 3,000 is usually okay. I'm banging down 2,500 just because. And then 3,000 just because. The other super important thing with this is the detection by affiliation. We're going to turn on neutrals because in order to actually set up like I'm on the enemy team kind of thing, you have to do that in C++. This is determined like way earlier than Blueprint because it's part of the netcode. So you can't assign teams inside the Blueprint. You have to do it from C++. Basically, Jesus Christ, dude. Basically, the way this works is there's a like byte that's assigned to hold team numbers. By default, everybody is 256, I do believe, or 255. And then if you pick another number, you're not neutral anymore. And if my number and your number are not the same, then we're enemies. But at the moment, everybody should be either friendlies or neutrals. The AI should all be friendlies, I do believe, and then the player and the AI should be neutrals. So we want to turn the neutral thing here, and then we're going to differentiate the player and the other AIs using tag.
yeah.
Although not from the stimulus one. The stimulus one, we're just going to check that we did in fact successfully see that. The tag is going to come from here. We're going to do actor has tag. And we're going to use the tag player.
I've got a question defining AI in general. Like, I had someone help me with a Unity project where if you got too close to the ogre, it would start doing its like throwing the dagger animation. To me, that's not AI because that's just like an if statement. If you get too close, run the animation cycle. Is that? But that's not AI, is it? I mean, like, what do you call that? It's an enemy.
So AI generally doesn't start. It doesn't usually start becoming AI until it has like decisions. So if it has to decide, like, all right, if I see you, I should chase you. Unless my health is below here, then I should go get a health pack before I try to chase you.
Yeah, so the Pong enemy is not an AI, even though it's easier just to call it that, like enemy AI, when the Pong just is following like a linear path, or I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like I said, like if there is no decision, like that little bouncy thing I have, that's not an AI. That's just a bouncy thing. This is a little closer, although we're not really going to get to the point of like really making decisions. It's going to be more just kind of like, I'm in this state or that state. But yeah, essentially, you have to get to the point where it's considering multiple things for at least, like there should be a couple of sub-states, basically. So, if I'm going to attack or if I'm in combat, there should be, like a flanking or a take cover or a retreat or thrusting. Like there should be multiple things I might do based on different factors.
Yeah.
And at that point, it's you're making decisions. But yeah, just in general, this probably doesn't quite come up to that level.
So you have to be using so using Blackboard to get the writing making its own decisions, because if you were making the decisions for it, like with it,
I mean, kind of. We're going to give it like the information it needs. So like I'm going to tell it who the player character is and if it sees it or not, and then based on that information, it's going to pick which part of the tree to go to. But again, our tree isn't big enough to really consider this like decisions.
yeah.
But that is okay. Actually, forget that. We'll just do this straight up. So if I no longer see the thing, we're going to do timer by events. And we'll set this to 3 seconds. So if we lose sight of the player and it takes 3 seconds before we actually find him again, we're going to just resume control. So we're going to stop looking for it. This is going to be our set a timer handle. So this is going to actually hold the timer for us, so we can turn it on and off if we need to. And then get the Blackboard. Either one of these will work. So this function here should return this variable. I'll go ahead and use the function just because. And then we want to set value as bool and set value as objects. And then key name, so variable is going to be my visual, and this is going to be my so I named these slightly differently than the Blackboard variables because I want to get this point across. Even though this is a name variable, the name of the variable is not like the value of the variable. So I have to actually type the name in here. So player char has to go there, and then as visual goes here. Let me double check that that's visual has visual, and has visual has a question mark at the end. And then you just want to make sure that those are spelled exactly the same, because if they are not, they will not give you an error, they just won't work. And then so this is basically setting it back to clear. This one, come up here, and we're going to actually set this. So first things first, I'm gonna stop the timer because I see you.
What was that hotkey you did you took a bunch of nodes, they cut automatically, you moved them. How'd you cut the paths?
So if you select that you don't work, if you hold control, you just click on it and unselect it.
Alright. Okay.
So basically, like, if you do the thing and there's like just one too close, you just it goes away and you move on.
Okay.
Also, if you select the thing and then click off, you can do control C, it'll sometimes erase the last. I'm gonna try everything. But and then how many of these do I have? Interesting. In any case, so this is going to be true, and this is going to be this. So if my perception updates and I successfully see you and you are the player, then I'm going to stop this timer and I'm going to set my blackboard values to be true and to, yeah, that's what you are. And then if I ever lose sight of you, it'll start the timer and then set this back to false and clear out the reference to the player. If this is running and then I catch sight of you again, this will clear out and then this part will never happen. So basically, we have ourselves a nice little line of sight thing. The last part of this we need to do before I can test it real quick is we need to add the AI controller to this. So if I type in pawn, stop here. Couple things pop up. Number one, auto possess AI, placed in world or spawn. And then AI controller class is going to be my platformer enemy controller VP. So I'm just going to use that one. Go ahead and pick the mesh I want to use real quick. When
What engine were you using for UE4?
I used a bunch of stuff. I used Unity for a little bit. I used Godot a bunch. Did some of the Pi game.
Yeah.
This tabletop stuff. Just whatever. Classic defaults. Yes, all right, good stuff. So that's all set. And then, so the last thing is tag. So if I type tag in here in the details panel, under actor, I can add actor tags. And this is just an array of names that you can access from anywhere. So same thing with components, they also have tags, so you can check for this stuff without ever casting. It's kind of the bonus. Do not confuse these with gameplay tags or gameplay ability tags. Those are different things with a whole completely different system. These tags are just actor tags and component tags are just a name that you can get a hold of and check against stuff. So let me real quick throw this dude in there, and then we can play real quick and see what happens. I didn't tell him how to troll or anything, so he should be basically just chilling. Are you doing anything? Interesting.
Okay.
Okay. Well, first of all, why don't you move it? Oh, that's fine. It's down. And then, so we're gonna hold this open for a second and see if we can't see this happen. So we're gonna play, and then you can actually see this firing over here. And if I run in front, it's trying to rotate, but there's nothing to rotate to, as far as it knows, and still doesn't seem to see me. So we'll see what's up with that. Same sort of thing. I'm gonna pull this down. This happen. So that came through as false for some reason. But we can actually see it happen right there. So let's see. Capital player. I don't know, because it's stupid, that's why. Being stupid is half problem, right? Just don't do it, and you'll be much better off in life.
I was about to suggest that solution you just came up with.
Yep. So the tag needs to go on the player, not on the enemy. There we go. Compile, save. Let's try this again. And then we'll set control next time. I want to make sure this new. There we go. You keep trying to get me. Then it loses sight. It doesn't know where I'm at. I'm not really sure what's going on. But we'll watch it next time. But he didn't. He got me. Yeah. Playing with that guy. But alright. Yeah. So he saw me. He rotated. He tried to kill me. It's all fun. Anybody have any questions about anything we did today? And then next time we will finish that out and then finish the game.
We're all good.
All good? Everybody get everything?
We have mastered it. I'm just playing. Got 10% of it figured out.
I got it. Alright, so yeah. If you have any questions, we can have a Discord. Otherwise, we will, like I said, finish up the AI stuff next time, and then also make the level end after, so we can transition to the next level, and that'll basically be it. That'll be the loop.
Sweet. Talk to you in 2.
See you guys later.